on flinttalkradio.com. I'm George Moss, the host of the program, and if you see me smiling, it's because we have our co-host here this afternoon. That's Miss Catherine Williams. And Catherine, for some reason, you bring a smile to my face every time you show up.
Oh, thank you.
And because you can carry...
That's a surprise.
Why would you be surprised?
I just say I'm surprised.
And so it's good to have you here this afternoon. Catherine comes in the studio today, and she didn't know we had a new look at the studio, so I wanted to let her know ahead of time that when we go into the studio where we do the recording, that you can expect to see a different appearance in the cameras. We'll continue to add to the kind of outlook we have here at the studio, and we have some new cameras in here that do different things.
Well, I definitely have a new look. I got my hair done, so
I was telling
definitely a change going on up in here.
Catherine was telling me before the program that she was once a model, Catherine?
Once upon a time.
And
but so, you say back in the day, yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
I can't say that because I have the same looks now that I had then. Nobody wants to look at me.
No, this is a big change since back in those days.
But the camera appearance here is different. And I was watching the show. You know, every time I do a program here, I go home and I watch the program, see how it came across. And it was just amazing to see how the cameras would zoom in and out on their own, and
really
different camera shots would jump from one side to the other. So we're just really growing here at the studio. And
it's a much better if it does that, zooms in, zooms out, and goes from you to me. That's great.
Yeah, I mean it's just
without like, you had to move it or anything.
Yeah, it's like I'm working at a different studio. When I started here 6 years ago, we had that. I always say this. We always had with a little camera over there in the corner. You couldn't hardly find it. And now there are like 5 or 6 cameras here right now. And I guess the one, I always have to look around and see which one we're on, but I think the one we're on right now is the one here in the center.
With the blue lights.
But you have to always look around and see which one it is now because there's so many cameras that can pick you up. And John tries to confuse us by going back and forth and changing it. So...
but this is a lot better than when I used to see John them with them big cameras on their shoulders and stuff, or had to set up that big camera at one time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I hope it doesn't.
Technology has changed.
It doesn't become the case where when we get so big here at the studio that John throws us out of here. You know,
when we become number one. You don't think that's a goal, but it is.
We're going toward the top. You know, we changed from. What was that stream we were on at first?
Ustream.
We're on Ustream now.
No, I thought he said we went to back to www.flinttalkradio.com.
Yeah, we're there, but what was that we were on before?
If you go to www.flinttalkradio.com, you'll see what's going on right now. So, I mean,
yeah.
So, and that's and also we put on YouTube as well. So,
okay, if they see it going on right now, but if they go to it tomorrow, will they still be able to see it?
They probably, the best bet to do is probably go to YouTube because see, it's like we haven't got it set up where we have the links to the, you know, where that little pictures are. Okay. We don't have the links to them yet because we have to redo the whole web page because Stickam, we had to remove everything when Stickam went belly up, you know, defolded.
Stickam, that's what I was trying to
think. Yeah, when Stickam folded, we had to take all down our links. Otherwise, we'd lose them. So.
Well, I like it better with it's just easier to go with www.com Flint Talk Radio. Oh God, www.flinttalkradio.com. It's just, it used to be just so easy. You just go to it, and I would see George's pictures or whoever picture I wanted to see, and I just click on it, and I would see their show. Mm-hmm. And now the YouTube, I haven't tried that yet. It's YouTube.
Put Flint Talk Radio there, or also you can type in your show's name. And it should be able to come up. They'd have to scroll through to see the date, you know, the last date, but they're all dated, you know.
Okay.
Well, we are going to continue to refine what we do here, and this is just one example, another example of it. The fact that we have these new cameras and a new look on the Ustream, even have a new network we're using. So we're not done here yet. We have a lot of work to do, and we're continuing to do the work we need to be done to continue to get the support that we're getting, and the support is in fact growing. I came to the studio today to talk about a couple of things. Catherine, have you been keeping up with the takeover, the controversy of the takeover in Detroit? You know, where they had Jesse Jackson down there.
Yeah.
And
I didn't even listen to him.
Well, who is listening to this man? But he's down there again.
Oh, he evidently got people listening because he was there, wasn't he?
Well, he's talking about.
And I know if he came, he was paid to come.
You can believe that. But here's Jackson coming into a city that is $327 million in debt.
I thought billion.
Well,
That they were had a $1 billion deficit.
Well, what they have here is unfunded liabilities in the billions. It's about $14 billion of unfunded liabilities that are due down the road.
Okay.
Right now, they're in debt to about $327 million. And the governor, which is the governor's prerogative, has assigned a black man, an attorney, by the way, it's a black attorney.
Who has some issues of his own with his finances.
And he couldn't have any more issues than Kwame Kilpatrick.
Oh man.
In terms.
Yes, Kwame Kilpatrick, he really has some issues going on. I think he's going back to prison.
Whatever your private affairs are, that's one thing. But but it's something else to have your hand in the public trial, and you're feeding off of the public funds and
his father too may go to prison behind this too.
His father,
yeah,
Kwame Kilpatrick was convicted of 24 of 30 different charges, and so 24 of those they found him guilty. I mean, he was doing everything down there. But you would think that these so-called civil rights leaders were coming to the city when they're bankrupting these urban communities, and would raise some question about it before it gets to this point. And then again, when they drive the city down into the ground,
yep, he did, didn't he?
The governor steps in, as he should have done
back
a long time ago,
yep,
and appoint a financial manager to manage the affairs that they refuse to manage. They're too busy stealing all the money out of the treasury. And then the hustlers come in here. These so-called civil rights leaders come in here, and they start making all these objections about you had we died prematurely, and we died for the right to vote, and we're not going to turn back. Well, who's turning us back is not the governor. The ones turning us back are these
Kilpatrick.
The ones turning us back is Kilpatrick.
Yeah.
And then you remember this guy named Ray Nagin down in New Orleans, the one that was the mayor.
It's Nagin. I thought it was Nagin. Is it Nagin or is Ray?
Ray Nagin.
Okay, Ray Nagin. Yeah.
Nagin.
He's not mayor anymore, is he?
Thank goodness for that. There are some miracles.
Mm-hmm.
But Nagin has been indicted on 21 counts.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you what the news is.
This is recent?
This is recent. He has 21 counts against him right now. Now he has not been convicted, but 21 counts. You weren't sitting
but what? Embezzlement or
part of that? They just can't. They just
misappropriation or
yeah.
I mean, what do they do? They just see that. I heard about this in California where these council people. Did you heard about that?
Yes,
they went in there and they was dipping and raising money for themselves and all kind of stuff.
They're making more than the president.
You know, and I'm just saying, wow, what is wrong with them? Do they think they could get away with that?
They think they can get away with it. They don't intend to get caught. And then once they get caught, they're so sorry that they did what they did, and they want to apologize to their constituency, and we didn't mean it. And yet they one after the other comes in and does the same thing, but none of them mean it when they're doing it. And so I'm getting to think, and I could be wrong here, but I'm getting to think that what they really didn't mean, they didn't mean to get caught. But Nagin is up for
I didn't know that
going to trial on indictments that he faces.
Is that why he lost the election?
I don't think term limited him out of there or what. I don't know if he ran for another term. I think there were term limits.
Really, they have term limits on mayors? I thought they could run forever.
So in some places they can. I do know that in this case with Bloomberg, we were talking about last time you were here, that Bloomberg was able to kind of pay enough money
to stay in there,
money around to his council members, and they expanded it to I think a third term. I think he gets to go out of there after this term is over. Got about 8 months.
Why can't President Obama do that? Spread a little money around and get what he wants as far as the things that he wants done.
Yeah, what does he want done? Can you tell me what he wants done? What I see he wants done is he wants to.
The latest, he just wants them to raise the taxes on the rich people and leave us, I would say me, alone. You know.
Oh yeah, and you think if you tax the rich that he's left you alone?
No, but just it'll be all of us. This is all our country. All of us should help take care of this country. not just some of us.
Yeah, some of the people.
And how did they make an agreement, those congressmen, Bonner and all them, Boehner or whatever, made agreement that they would not raise the taxes on the richest? Give me a break.
But you know, Catherine, when Mitt Romney said, was overheard saying that 47% of the population in this country don't pay federal taxes, he's right. Because a lot of people, because of the loopholes and the way it's written, a lot of and also the earned income credit, people get money in that circumstance they've never earned back to them. So they're taking from somebody else to subsidize somebody else. I don't think that's fair. I mean, I think we should have lower taxes for everybody, and how you do that is stop spending. That's simple. That's all it is. We don't have to be spending as much as we are.
They still could tax the rich.
Why would you? Okay, if we cut back.
Why not?
Why? What's the point of that?
What's the point of taxing me?
Okay.
So you're supposed to be exempt, but somebody else is supposed to be
we have this idea of the rich
put on
not paying their fair share.
I think
I
that we all
talk.
should do it.
They never talk about
47% of the population doesn't pay taxes.
Yeah. What is a fair share above zero? If they pay zero taxes, what is their fair share? Has anybody ever talked about the fair share of the poor? Because zero is not any share. But let me ask. Okay, let me ask this question here of the viewers, and all of those who say the rich should pay more in taxes. What percentage do you think that of the taxes are paid by the rich? Okay, let me ask you that question. What percentage? And Johnny, I'm going to need some tissue because the captain's making my nose run.
Oh, really? I opened up a worm of cans, huh? A can of worms, I'm sorry.
When I hear people saying that the rich are not paying their fair share, I have to ask, okay, let's stop right there. Let's put a time out here.
Don't everybody do 10%?
And what percentage?
I mean, what is that? Don't all of us pay 10% of taxes? What is that?
Thank you, John. And what percentage do you think the rich are paying?
They should be paying 10% like 10%? The rest of us.
Okay, let me give you the stats. And I want everybody out there to listen to me close. Because I hear everybody talking about the rich should pay their fair share. But
are they paying at all?
Or have you ever heard anyone say what their fair share is? Let me tell you what
are they paying? Just answer that question. Do they pay any taxes at all?
They are 35% of their income.
35%?
35% of their on the federal level. Okay? And then you add on state and local, they're paying, you add that up. 35, say, and then you got gas tax.
Well, then why are they talking about, is that a smoke screen to say to raise the taxes on the rich? They paying 35%?
Yeah,
what do we pay? I pay 10% of my taxes?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what it is. It's a diversion away from the real problem, which is a spending problem. They want you to think there's a problem of people not paying enough into the till. Let me say
thank
this.
y'all for clearing that up, because I didn't think they were paying any taxes. Let me say this to those politicians who would,
in fact, spread that nonsense. Can you tax the rich enough to pay $16.5 trillion of the debt that you run up in Washington? Over the last 5 years, we've added $6 trillion to the deficit. We added $4 trillion under George Bush 8 years of administration. How do you keep up with that kind of spending? We don't have a taxation problem. We have a spending problem. But getting back to the narrative of what the rich are paying, let's look at the numbers. And let's do the math here. The top 1% are paying 38% of all federal income taxes, the top 1%. The top 5% are paying 58% of the taxes, and the top 10% is paying about 70% of the taxes. You know what that means? Okay, we said the top 10% are paying 70% of the taxes. That means the other 90%, including that 47% that Romney talked about.
You said the top 10 is paying 78?
70% of the taxes are paid by the top 10%.
That's over half.
70% is more than almost 3/4. It's 5% from being 3/4 of all the taxes paid on the federal level. So
this is all a scam?
It is a scam. Let me run a question by you. And John, I'm going to ask you this question also.
Well, why is they raising all this hell about it?
Because politicians are
the raising of
they depend on people not knowing. And another thing, they're dependent on.
Well, it's the truth, because I didn't know, and I'm saying, why in the hell won't they just go and raise the taxes up?
With their nonsense. Let me ask a question here.
You want to give half your money to taxes?
Yeah. They already paid.
I got you, John.
Even Bill Myers came out and said he was a guy talking about he wants big government, and he's a liberal and all of that. And he was even complaining last week, saying he's tired of paying 50% of his taxes, of his income.
That's why they have all them overseas accounts and stuff hide money,
Yeah,
so they wouldn't be bothered with taxes.
It's not a tax problem, folks. It's a spending problem. And there's no amount of money that we can raise that beyond which the government can spend. And they were trying to act like, John, I'm going to ask you a question here, so don't leave the equipment, because I got to bring you into this conversation. I want to quiz you and Catherine on a very basic question here. And that is this question right here. It's one that Thomas Sowell raised in his article. Okay, we're going to talk about sequester for a minute, just to show you what
I don't know nothing about the article you're talking about.
That's all right. You don't have to know anything about it. I'm going to ask you a question about the math. Let's say that you have to cut back 2%. Now, we're not talking about 2% of what you spent in 2012. We're talking about what you spent, what you projected to spend in fiscal year 2013, which ends in October of next year. So we're going to talk about 2% cut in the projection. Now, you're going to spend all the money in 2013 that you spent in 2012, but the projected budget, which is above that, we're going to cut the projection by 2%. Okay, now, when you cut the projection by 2%, if you had a choice, and you're a politician, Catherine, so are you, John, and you're going to have to cut 2%, and you have some money over here that you are paying to build a statue of Benedict Arnold.
Or I got some money to give to Egypt.
You got a chance to cut some money on a children's program to feed hungry children. Okay, which one, as a politician, do you decide to cut?
The statue.
The statue?
Yeah.
Which one you say?
Or why would you be giving foreign aid to other countries when we have
that ain't the
here?
question. Now, don't go off into that area.
Okay.
I said that
the statute. I would cut
first
the
of all, John, you're
statute.
wrong. I want to see what Catherine said. She didn't hear you.
I just said statute.
Oh, the statue?
Yeah. Children not hey, feed the babies, feed the babies.
You're both wrong.
What do you mean we wrong?
You're both wrong. Because what you're doing is that you're looking at it through a non-political lens. Number one, you don't cut the statue of Benedict Arnold. I'll tell you why not. Because number one, if you cut it on the statue of Benedict Arnold, first of all, nobody cares. And number two, they raise the question, what would you build the statue for in the first place? Okay, understand that. Now, the reason why you cut on the children's program is because everyone is concerned about the children getting fed breakfast. So the politicians don't go to Benedict Arnold now. They're not going to cut that program. They're going to cut visits to the White House. You see how it works?
And they did do that.
In other words, even though it's been proven that visits to the White House cost $78,000 a week, that's like, that's what we call in the community, chump change. But they're going to cut that out, even though it's a voluntary. The people who actually open the White House up to visitors, to children on spring break. I mean, they can't go to the people's house because they cut that out. Why did they cut it out? Because that's what people will be concerned about. They ain't concerned about the
statue,
EPA.
huh?
Yeah. So you see what they did? That's what politicians do. And when it comes down to listen to politicians, always do so with a jaundiced eye, because you can believe this. When they start talking about woe is me, the rich aren't paying their fair share, you can believe the history is not on their side, nor the facts. And what they're doing is trying to act like what they're doing is inconsequential, which is spending our money.
But another thing I'd like to bring up, too, is, like, I've said this over and over again in Facebook postings, all these people, all these liberals especially, going about the rich not paying their fair share. Like people like Don and Frank and all this stuff, they're the ones that wrote the tax law, which give loopholes to corporations. They're the one, and then they turn around and say, look what they're not doing. It's because they gave them the ability to do it. If 10% of $1 million each year is way more than, say, 10% of somebody making $20,000 a year. Wouldn't you agree? Just look at the math. What would you rather have, 10% of somebody making $1 million a year, or 10% of somebody making $20,000 a year?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons of why we don't have. Ben Carson called for this, and now he's the whipping boy on MSNBC and these other Alphabet Soup.
Ben Carson,
Ben
the
Carson, they're jumping all
surgeon?
over him. The surgeon. This guy named Toure that's on MS. Mark Levine calls it MSLSD. MSNBC, LSD, ADHD, You put your letters in there. They're all over Ben Carson right now because Ben Carson is very dangerous to the plantation politics, because here's a man that's coming out and he's got a conservative point of view and he's talking about equality of taxation where everybody pays 10% of their income. I mean, let me ask you, why don't we have that? Why don't we have where if you make $1 billion, you pay $100 million in taxes. That's 10%. If you make $10 billion, you pay $1 billion in tax. Okay, if I make $10,000, I pay $1,000 in tax. I make $10, I pay $1 in tax. Why don't we have that? I'm throwing this question out there also to the two persons in the studio that I know got the answer. So, John, why don't we have that? I would come back to you again. Can't think about it. I'm coming back to you in just a minute.
I would say the reason why we don't have that is because politics. Again, they would.
We know it's politics, but what politics are you talking about?
Well, it's like, well, let's face it. You do this for. Basically, the politicians get paid, so you don't. Another person doesn't have to be taxed at a certain rate. They create the tax, like I alluded to. They write the tax law to favor these people. The only way you can get away with that is having legislators in your back pocket doing this for you, and they're going to be paid for doing this for you, and that's all it is. I mean, these people are. They're trying to divide everything. These rich are not paying their fair share. And they are paying their fair share. I mean,
they pay more than the regular. I thought everybody just paid 10%. I didn't know it was 38, 58, 78%.
Look at all.
I didn't know that. I just thought we all just paid 10 or 12%, 15%. That's it.
No, that's because you're not watching the politician's mouth if their mouth is moving. Assume they're lying. If they open their mouths.
I just thought this was the regular rate of taxes was 10%.
No, the rich are paying.
Everybody.
The rich are paying more than their fair share. They take out of the economy, the top 1% take out of the economy about 16% of the income. They get 16% of the income. That's 1/6. Okay, now 16% is what they are earning. They're paying 38% in taxes. That is 22% more than what the income is, which is that's more than their fair share. Now, why is it that 47% of the people are not paying any taxes? Let's look at that just for a minute in terms of what the politics are involved in it. If you are not paying any taxes, what do you care about what Washington does? And you do what Chavez did. This is a Hugo Chavez kind of way of governing. Did you notice how when Chavez died, all the people in Venezuela, all the poor folks, were out there beating their chests? Jesse's down there, all the socialists in this country, they went down there. Oh, he was for the poor. Of course he's for the poor. He took the money from the rich and gave it to them. Wouldn't you be for him too? But why does he do that? Because there's always more poor people than there are rich people. And if you take it from the rich and give it to the poor, they can't hurt you politically. Because it's only about, 10% of them, maybe 1% of them. And there's 99% of the people out there that's poor. And why are they poor? They're poor because they're not as productive as the rich. So the politicians go and tax the rich, take their money, give it to the poor, and become populist leaders to which they can now get in power because they're not taxing the poor folks. That's why 47% of them don't pay any taxes.
And people always have the idea that Robin Hood was such a great idea, and that's what they did. Robin Hood get to steal from the rich to give to the poor. But he didn't only give from the rich. He didn't steal from the rich. He stole from the aristocracy, who was forcing that out of the population in the first place. The rich in this country are not forcing you to give up anything. Well, most often they're not. You're buying goods and services or products they or their corporations produce.
Well, they own the land, as I said. He who owns the land controls it.
Well, yeah, but that's not all. Yeah, but see, the thing is, if you ever read like Wealth of Nations, Inquiry of Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith, he talks about rents on properties. Okay, that I would say actually rents and property ownership. If you want to look at the United States, the federal government has increased their holding on the land within the United States over the past 40 years. Matter of fact, it's a huge portion of the land mass that's being held in trust by the federal government. Yet they cannot be doing anything. If it was they're turning that around like a business owner would and own land, they would actually doing something with it was going to provide a profit. But the federal government actually is now running that into the red. They're taking lands away from private productive citizens and not producing anything with it.
Yeah, on the eminent domain.
Lord have mercy.
And they are just simply accumulating more and more power. All of this is just diversionary, where they're throwing this out and making it appear that the culprits are somewhere other than in Washington, D.C., which is a wash in our money, by the way, because that's where all the money goes to Washington, and then they're divvying it out for political purposes after taking it away from the people who are the income earners. I have contended, and I have yet to have anyone to contradict this notion, and that is that a tax on the rich is a tax on everybody. Because if you tax the rich, the question is, who are the ones who create the jobs in this country? And when you're taxing the rich, what you're doing is you're taxing away profit. And what is profit about? Profit is about investment in the company as it expands, because it makes profit. It wants to make more profit. And so you use the profit to expand the business so you can grow the business even more so, because you're competing against your own profits. To the following year, you want to make more than you made the year before. So you continue to expand, which means you create more jobs. You're looking for employing more people. You have persons that are benefiting from it. And when you tax it away from them, it's not just a tax on the rich. It's a tax on the poor as well. Look and see if it doesn't contract the economy. Well, the economy contracts as a result of that. So I contend this, and I have not yet been contradicted in it. And that is, a tax on the rich is a tax on everybody.
Look at luxury tax they did on yachts years ago. They wanted to tax the rich, so they said, hey, only rich people buy yachts. So they started taxing them higher and higher rates. The rich just said, okay, we're not going to buy yachts here in the United States. Remember, they went to the Bahamas or other places, bought yachts made there, and registered them there, and then they brought them back to the United States, import. And guess all the people who suffered from that, people who were the boat builders, the people who were the electricians.
That's exactly the point.
The people who did all the finishing work and stuff like that, they're the ones lost.
Yes, you see.
So y'all saying the government does not care about the people
They
at
don't.
all?
No, they don't. These are politicians who. Sorrell made the comment also about that. He said that number 1, 2, and 3 on the politician list is getting reelected. That's what they have in mind.
Period.
And I heard. I was listening to. One of the senators, the one from Oklahoma, that's Tom Coburn, and he was being interviewed on C-SPAN, one of the more honest ones up there. And Coburn, who won't be running for another term, unfortunately, he's one of the few that should run for another term, because the rest of those guys, most of them, need to be kicked out of power. But he said that if the people knew what they were doing in Washington, D.C., what these politicians were in fact doing, they would in fact throw 90% of them out. And he said probably would throw 100% of them out. That's how bad it is, a cesspool up there. But they want to make it appear that they are so concerned about the poor, and they're so concerned about the way the country is running and things of that sort. These politicians could care less.
Less about the people except themselves.
And look if they cared about the country, they would in fact bring spending under control. Because what the enemy of this country right now, the major enemy of this country, is our deficit. The major national security issue we have to deal with right now, as bad as things are in terms of these terrorists out there, and that's pretty bad, but you can't defeat the terrorists if you don't have an economy. And if you have a $16.5 trillion deficit, and they're now saying, I thought it was like $88 trillion in unfunded liabilities. I'm now hearing something different about that. There are people that are now saying that our unfunded liability is like $200 trillion down the road. When the baby boomers start retiring, and after they already started retiring,
they already started.
When that becomes an accelerated pace, even more so down the line, people start retiring early and things like that, and you got this pulling off.
It's going to be our children stuck with the debt, our grandchildren.
It is unconscionable, the amount of debt that we're going to have. It's unconscionable right now, but we're talking about much more in excess of where it is right now down the road. I'm talking about 10 years down the road. And what they're doing to hide how bad things are is they're printing $85 billion a month in paper. Just throwing paper out there. And they're printing money. Can you imagine dumping paper with president's pictures on it to the tune of $85 billion a month? Just dumping it out there. Multiply 12 times $85 billion. 10 months of 85 billion would be 800 billion. So almost $1 trillion, more than $1 trillion would be added to the money supply. So so the deficit goes up because we're borrowing 46 cents out of every dollar that we're spending. Then we are blowing the dollar up by the fact that we're inflating the currency by adding another $1 trillion into the currency stream, by adding worthless paper into the currency, because we refuse to tax at that rate because otherwise they'd be in trouble. So they didn't print the money. And then on the one hand, we pay the taxes at the store, and then the other part of the tax, the 46 cents, is tax on our children so that they don't have to go out of office. That's why they do deficit spending. And what is deficit spending? It is a tax on the children and the grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to pay it right now, but your grandchildren pay it after they leave office.
That's what I said.
And I'm fearful of anybody that tells me that they're going to fix the deficit and balance the budget. You listen to this, John. They're going to balance the budget in 10 years. Those guys will be out of office in 10 years. So they're going to balance they're going to balance the budget in 10 years. Folks, if anybody tell you that they're going to balance the budget in 10 years, how many of you going to remember that they said that in 2013? When we get to 2023, are you going to remember that they said that or who said it? No, you would have forgotten just like I would have forgotten. And that's what they're counting on because they don't intend to balance the budget.
But what if they did it, the people like they do, and I think in that country called Cyprus, where they have frozen people's money is in the bank and they taking so much percentage of it to
Cyprus
build them out.
Cyprus is where we're going. People say that we are not going.
No, that's why I brought that up because if we don't watch it, that's what's going to happen.
Let me tell you what people
don't
say.
Don't think they can't slip that in on us here. They've done it before in this country.
Well, let's talk about Cyprus.
Remember the savings and loans?
Yeah.
Remember them?
Yeah, they're doing it here now. They're doing it here now, but they're not as honest as Cyprus. Cyprus has been ordered by pretty much by the EU, the European Union, that if you want this bailout, if you want this $9 billion loan bailout, there's some things you got to do, and that is you got to go into these savings accounts and also those checking accounts, and you got to access some of the money on those savings and on those checking accounts, and they said between 5 and 10%. Well, at first they said not going to do it.
Just 10%.
Yeah, they said they're not going to do it, just like they did with Feinstein. You know, like Feinstein said, the Senate said, we're not going to bring Feinstein's bill up for a vote because the votes are not there. Now, she said that she's not giving up on the idea. Well, why did the Senate not bring it up? Because there's too much glare on it right now. But they haven't forgotten about it. They're going to bring it back up later on. Well, in Cyprus, it's the same thing. Everyone was watching. What is Cyprus going to do here? Are they going to tax people's savings?
Yep.
Are they going to tax their checking account?
They said couldn't get their monies out.
Well, they came back with this plan. $129,000, our money, is considered to be wealthy. So there they go again with that small percentage of the population. And they're going to access those who have money in their account that have more than $129,000 in savings. They're going to put a prescription on that income. Now, that doesn't make anybody that doesn't have that sad about it, but they're just going to just simply do it to them. But you know what happens here? Once they have got that in, then the rest of us are involved in the mix. As soon as they sell the idea. And so, I mean, they weren't going to, the federal income tax is only going to be a tax on about 7% of the population. Guess what? We all pay income tax now. And if you haven't paid it yet, wait until the 15th and don't pay it. You see what happens.
But I thought they had frozen those people's money and that they were going to take that percentage from their savings.
Yeah, they were arguing.
And the people was raising sand about it. You know, that's the last I heard. I think I heard a little bit of it this morning.
Yeah, they're gonna take that. I just can't imagine that you would tax the money that persons have made. They pay tax on when they made the money. Now you're going to put your money into a savings account or a checking account because you want to draw on it as you pay your bills, and they want to go into your savings account or money you've already paid taxes on, and they want to now tax the money you put in the bank.
Obamacare actually allows for a provision where they actually have the access to your account information. That's under Obamacare. And people, oh, the rich going to pay their fair share. Well, they're going to feel that when they got a little nest egg saved up, maybe 100,000, 200,000, or something, 120,000. Now it's not yours anymore. It's the government's because they have better plans for it than you have. You're just going to spend it and piss it away on vacation.
Well, my father told me years and years ago, don't trust them banks and savings and loans.
Don't trust it. But when the government can reach into you
and take your money.
Take your money. Where's the banks?
Or close like those savings and loans did. They just closed on the people.
Yeah, but guess what? A lot of that stuff has been done because of the government regulations and the government insisting on certain things that are not sound financially. Just like the housing bubble we just went through. That was forced upon banks and other lending institutions by the government to create that scenario. That was forced to. We got to increase home ownership, and these people who had subprime,
subprime
lending. They couldn't get a regular loan at a regular rate,
right?
Because they're a risk. So extending that was created by the government, and they can walk away smell like a rose, and everybody's blaming the corporations for that.
Then the people couldn't pay those subprime loans because they would go up on them all the time, messing up folks' budget. They couldn't do it, so they lost their homes.
Yeah, and once the government forced them through the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977, forced the banks to loan that money to those who were least able to pay them back. They're gonna call it predatory lending, but it was really forced by the government, and that's well known now in several books. One is Housing Boom and Bust. Another book called The Architects of Ruin, and the banks are nowhere to be found in that assessment of what really happened here. The banks took the blame for it, but the real blame is Christopher Dodd in the Senate and Bonnie Frank in the House. Both of them are now.
What happened to them?
They decided not to run again because the deal was done, and the people were demanding their flesh because of what they called the Housing Market Collapse of the government sponsored entity. And they were going to pay a political price for it, so they got out of Dodge before the political price was in fact extracted. But this was caused by the government through its GSEs, government-sponsored entities, as they call it.
Well, George, what happened to that savings and loans? That happened some years ago. But did the people ever get their monies from that when they closed it down?
I'm one of the ones that lost money in that.
Okay.
And I won't tell you how much money I lost, but I'm still mad about it. And that happened back in the 90s. The SNL.
We called it the SNL scandal.
The SNL scandals. And whenever the government gets involved in it, anything the government gets involved in, you can just write it down. There's going to be a tremendous amount of corruption that goes on. For example, I'm in education right now at the university level. You know what the inflation rate has been between 1988 and 2013, that 25-year period of time? The inflation rate has been 100%. You know what the tuition cost has been in that 25-year period of time? 400%. So we've had, if you look at the line of where the inflation has increased, we've had 100% inflation increase over 25 years, meaning that what your dollar paid for 25 years ago, what your dollar pays for 25 years later, a penny paid for it 25 years ago.
Like when I started over at Mott, right out of high school, I think the average per credit hour was like $24, $25 an hour, credit hour, and it went up to like 30 when I was there in a few years. Now it's like what, 70 or 80 per or $100 per hour now.
Yeah, it's hard to go to school now.
Well, the thing is, it's one of those
registration and buying your books and everything. It's extremely hard.
And so many people who are not paying out of their own pocket or getting some kind of loan or some kind of financial aid. They're no different than any other business. They have to have money to float around until that money comes in from the federal government. It's real slow. The federal student aid program and stuff, they're real slow on paying. So now they charge people who are paying out of their own pocket, out of their own resources, much higher. So we can help everybody get out of this, economic slump, get everybody educated for jobs that don't exist. Then they get out there and they have this huge bill if they get a loan. Where would they be employed at?
We go out there in debt.
Yeah, it's the government. The government has got to be reined back in underneath the Constitution, and if we can't do that, we can't solve this problem.
But how would that? Oh, you said under the Constitution.
Yeah, we don't rein government in.
Well, how would you do that? Besides, who would you get to fight to stand up for that? To ringing in the government under the Constitution?
Well, I was thinking about that very question on the way to the studio. because Rush Limbaugh was talking about the low information voter. Let me tell you this: all the voters are low information voters. He was talking about the ones that don't pay attention to what's going on. I'm not talking about those persons. I'm talking about the ones who go to the polls every 4 years or every 2 years and vote Democrat or Republican and Democrat and keep doing it over again, trying to send Mr. Smith to Washington. You know, Stewart, that role that was played by Stewart.
Eddie Murphy?
No, what's his name, John? The actor Stewart.
The guy in Trading Places.
Yeah, the one Mr. Smith goes
That's
to Washington.
Eddie Murphy.
There was Eddie Murphy, and then one was Don Amici, and I forget the other guy.
And then there's one Stewart was his name, tall, thin fellow.
Yeah, he was one of the brothers, right? The
Yeah,
brothers,
but no, this is the character back there with Gregory Peck and those
Picking
guys.
all them, yeah.
He wasn't.
He played in that Christmas movie also.
Yeah, he was.
Is it Jon Stewart?
No, it's another Stewart. It's well-known actor. Played in Vertigo. He played in Vertigo too.
Oh yeah.
I can think of Stuart Granger.
It's called Mr.
Smith Goes to Washington.
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
I knew we were going to eventually get it. Yeah,
And the
Jimmy
one
Stewart.
Eddie Murphy played in was, it wasn't Mr. Smith.
Yeah,
it
but,
was something else. He went to Washington.
yeah, but we keep waiting for Mr. Smith to go to Washington. Let me just tell you this. Mr. Smith is never going to Washington, not on these conditions, because you're not going to be able to vote Republican or Democrat or third party and to get the changes that you want. We need an overhaul of the imperial government in Washington, D.C. And that's going to only come about by what I'm talking about, bringing about, and that is a constitutional convention. Beyond that point, this problem cannot be fixed. And they're going to come to this position.
So what is this country going to do? Fall? Is it going to be like, what's that picture that's coming? Olympus is down?
Yeah, if we don't stop
with the heroes in it. I mean, it's just, I don't know if y'all been seeing the commercials on that, but it is a hero in America. We go in and take our country back. That, the reality, this country could fall.
It could, yes, this country can fall.
And if it falls, the people fall.
We're not exempt from the laws of physics and laws of economics, the laws of power, any of the laws. That if you continue to do the same thing over and over again and you expect a different outcome, that's insanity. And it's insanity no matter who is, in fact, the officers of the insanity. If you're creating that insanity, then that's insane also. And so the government is, in fact, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome, and the outcome is not going to be different. $16.5 trillion. You keep spending this money, and it won't be $16.5 trillion. It'll be double that. They're talking about $20 trillion by the end of this president's term. Here's what I was getting ready to read about what the problems are that we have in here. The problem that we have, quite frankly, is that we don't understand the foundation of this nation, and that is the foundation of this country is the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment is an amendment. I'm gonna read this to you so we'll all understand why we have got to get back to square one. If we don't get back to the foundation of the genesis of the country, then the problem can't be fixed. Here's what Amendment 10 says. It says, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So anything that's not expressly given to the federal government, nor prohibited to the states, if it doesn't say the states don't have this right, then those rights therefore rest with the states. Now, where are the rights that are delegated to the federal government? Well, they are itemized and they are limited. They are enumerated and limited, and they are found in Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 1 through 18. Let me read that. Let me just read a few of those. Because it's really, the powers of the federal government are quite limited. It's in Article 1, Section 8. The Congress shall have power. And they delegated 17 itemized power that the federal government has. The Congress shall have power in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. There is no income tax in that power to tax. Those taxes are the tax from imposts meaning imports, duties, and excise taxes, and it's to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and the general welfare. And what they did with that was, in fact, to say that when they are spending money upon this, that, and the other, never was intended, they're saying that's a general welfare. So they throw money over here at these local constituents to get reelected, and that's their constituents over here in Michigan, for example. They want to claim that's general. How's that general if it comes out of the general fund and you go into a particular constituency inside of the state that doesn't benefit the entire constituency of the country, but the money is coming out of the country's treasury? That's not the intention of that. To borrow money on the credit of the United States. You know what? If I get this convention off the ground, what are we going to do with that? Article 1, Section 8, Clause 2. There won't be any ability to borrow money. You'll live within your means, and there'll be no ability to borrow on the faith and credit of the United States. That's where I think the framers made a mistake, because they couldn't envision these politicians today. So they put in there to borrow money on the credit of the United States. And they've been borrowing money on the credit of the United States to the point right now where we have $16.5 trillion in debt. And that's going to increase every year from this point forward if we don't stop it. And our grandchildren are going to pay the price for it. So what I'm calling for is quite frankly, is a constitutional convention. And we are working on that behind the scenes, Catherine. This is going to happen, but I don't know when. It's going to happen. We're in 5 states right now.
Well, I think if you set the date, don't, if you say, I don't know when, it might not never happen, but if you set a date and a time, it will happen.
Well, we don't know the time because we don't know how long it's going to take us to get all these states on board. We need.
We'll 30. Say we're going to do this within the next 2 years, but set a time.
Yeah, okay.
Set a goal. You have to.
That's an idea.
Otherwise, you're just drifting.
Yeah, I think you had a point there. We were trying to put things on the ground floor so that we can invite people to come into it. We need people like Judge Napolitano, for example, who I read his book called The Constitution in Exile, and Napolitano has called for this. I was surprised that we came to the same conclusion.
Well, have you contacted him?
No, but I was trying to build a network first. We're trying to build a network first, and then when we get the ground floor laid, where we have an organization in place, we're going to ask for those national icons like Napolitano to be our spokesperson for the group.
Oh, okay.
But see, I don't want them to come in and then get frustrated because nothing has been built, and they're coming in having to do all the building work, and then they have to organize it and then be spoke. All this is too much work. We want to build the foundation, get all the groundwork done, and then put people over that have a national
conference.
National listenership, have a national reputation, and he has a good reputation out there. To come out there and be the spokesperson for the group and speak on behalf of having this done. We're going to need 34 states to convene the convention.
He could be one of your guest speakers at the convention.
Yeah.
And also a spokesperson. He could do both.
Well, I'm going to a dinner it's going to be I think it's going to be in Romulus. And they're going to have Dr. Carson as one of the guest speakers. And I'm going to be going to that just to network. It's put on by I think it's the Romulus Tea Party. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be going to that dinner more or less just because I want to be in the place where you're going to be able to recruit some folks, because we need bodies right now. We need some folks that do some of the legwork, and we need to begin to organize throughout the states. And when we come out of the ground, we're going to spring on the state legislature's pressure that would make them convene a convention that would be the first time this ever happened in the history of the United States where we could convene a convention called by the states. This has never happened before. but it's certainly called for. It's certainly allowed for in Article 5 of the Constitution, where you can have the states to request that they convene a convention where the Congress must convene it once 2/3 of the states actually ask for it. So that's what we're working on right now, and we're going to be able to.
Pray the Lord bless you in that effort.
Yeah,
because if not, this country is going somewhere, and I don't like where I see it going.
It is going down. These politicians.
They just taking us somewhere, and it hurts all people, not just the rich. It hurts all of us, rich and poor, all.
The thing that really gets you about the politicians is that they don't have any mercy.
They don't care.
They don't. They know 13% of the people, only 13%, believe that Congress is doing a good job. They got 87% of the people who just are frustrated with Congress. But that doesn't matter to them as long as their own constituents separate their frustration from the ones that they represent. So the constituents are frustrated with Congress as a body, but they keep electing these people time and time again.
So what is that? That says something about the people that keep reelecting them.
And that's why we got to go this route, because the people are not going to get it in terms of that. We got to get all those guys out.
My understanding, though, if you got enough money, you don't have to know nothing about being a politician or anything. But if you got enough money to just say want to run for the United States president, you can set up campaign headquarters all throughout this country. You got enough money, you can make it as president of the United States, because these people are so gullible. They just gullible. And once that person get in there as the president of the United States, all those promises that he made, which was sounding so good to everybody, he doesn't keep none of them.
We don't hold our officials accountable, and that's why Jesse Jackson Jr. could walk off with $750,000.
Kwame Kilpatrick and those councilmen.
That guy was down there.
Ray Nagin.
What was he not doing down there in office?
Right. What did he not do? He did everything. Cheated on his wife.
This guy. and they down there talking about the emergency financial manager taking over. And they got a guy that's guilty of 24 out of 30 counts of malfeasance in office. They talk about a manager coming in and manage the affairs. He wouldn't manage. And they got $14 billion in unfunded liability.
They found some stuff on him.
How do you deal with people like that?
Who? The emergency manager got $14,000?
No, I'm talking about how do you deal with people who could have their mayor going to jail for misusing money, and the issue for them is not the mayor running the city into the ground. The issue is the governor appointing an emergency manager. Jesse Jackson didn't come in there and talk about the malfeasance.
He talks about some civil rights stuff.
Yeah, he wants to make it into a civil rights issue.
And it's not.
It's an issue of corruption in these urban communities where the constituents...
But isn't that what y'all say you and John be talking about when they use these things to distract the people from the real deal?
That's what they're doing. And so I don't think the route is going to be for the people to do what Spike Lee talked about in that movie called School Days, where at the end of the movie it's about wake up. I mean, you can go up there and holler, wake up all you want to. We're going to have to put in place certain systemic changes that would change the way we do business in this country. And I have no respect, no hope, or belief in either two parties. They both are a problem. And it doesn't matter which of those two parties you put in there, because one is, and what they're really fighting over, by the way, is what they're really fighting over is they're fighting over which one's going to manage the big government. That's what they're arguing about. The Republican Party want to run it for their constituents. The Democratic Party want to run it for their constituents. And they're arguing over who's going to be the managers. They're not arguing over big government or spending within your means. They're arguing about which party is going to control the affairs of the country. And we see that in terms of look what the Republican Party is talking about right now. They were talking about immigration should not be allowed, citizenship, the path of citizenship should not be allowed for those who have broken into the country. Guess what they're talking about right now? They're talking about trying to appeal to those persons because they want that as part of their base now.
As their constituents.
So I can't tell the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party.
I'm listening to
same way.
What's his name? Mitt Romney saying the reason why he felt he lost presidency is because he didn't touch bases or with those the Hispanics and the black people and the women and everything. You have to include everybody.
That's what I'm talking about in terms of these politicians. See, I don't agree with that assessment of Romney. Romney
that was his own assessment.
Yeah, that's his own assessment. But that's what these persons do. They lose and they start talking about, well, they weren't inclusive enough. No, your problem is that your base stayed home. You know why? Because you didn't have a conservative base. Your message wasn't conservative. You tried to be everything to everybody, and your base stayed home. That's why you lost. 9 million people didn't even go to the polls. And that's because these persons want to try to be out here being all things, all people. Ronald Reagan was elected twice in 1980 and 1984, and then after he was elected, George Bush Sr. was elected. 12 years of the Republican Party. Were they trying to be out here with all the people out there? No, they had a conservative message, and that message resonated with the voters because they stood for something. If Romney had wanted to be elected, he did want to be elected, but his strategy was wrong. He thought that the best thing to do was to go out there and try to be a chameleon and take this position in this crowd and that position, that crowd. 47% not paying taxes. Then they found that created controversy. He started apologizing for that. People started.
He apologized for a lot of things. He had to turn around and eat his stuff.
And people turned him off, as they should have done.
Yep, he had to turn around all the time for what he would say. And so what's the guy that's running with him, Ryan? What's his the one who
Paul Ryan?
Paul Ryan, yeah.
And
he would have to eat his words too.
And listen to how he sounds right now. Have you been watching him? Listen to how this guy sounds right now. I've been watching him. That guy, it would be no different. They all talk this. What is the party? What do these parties believe in? If the Republican Party thinks that they can become the Republican Democratic Party and become a carbon copy of the Democratic Party by just throwing our money out there to these constituents, they're going to be in for a rude awakening in 2016. I know I'm not going to be voting for them. I'm not looking at a third party, though. I'm looking for a systemic intervention, and the intervention is going to be from getting a answer in place to the power brokers in Washington, D.C. in both parties. We got to get their attention. And if we get this convention off the ground, I think we are going to get it off the ground because we got some people that are very serious. We're small right now, but when we come up with our plan, we're going to have some things to chew on. We got some plans in place and a program we're putting in place in terms of what we think the convention should, in fact, do. First of all, rescind the 17th Amendment, of course, and how we elect the senators. And another thing, Catherine, is we're talking about having all terms limited. Won't be any career politicians. 3 terms for the House, 1 term for the Senate, and 1 term for the President.
Why 3 terms for the House?
Because they're 2-year terms. Their terms are 2 years.
So if there's 3 terms, that's 6 years, right? Why would you do that?
Because the Senate is 6 years. 1 term of the Senate would be 6 years.
Okay, so why not just change all of them's terms? The House, the Senate, and who else you mentioned? And
the President. Because the reason why we would have the members of the Senate 6 years is because the Senate, if you change the 17th Amendment, the Senate will be representing the states. And the states is what created the federal government. I mean, look at this. Look at this. The fact of what happens right now. Ask yourself the question: why is the members of the House serve 2 years, the President serves 4 years, but the Senate initially served 6 years, right? Mm-hmm. 2, 4, and 6. Now, why did the Senator serve more years than the President?
Well, I think you brought that up.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 minute?
Yeah, 1 minute.
I was at a Comet study group meeting where you were talking about that the Senate came from the states. The states sent them there so they could see what was going on with Washington,
That's
D.C.
why I wouldn't change that. Because the states are the creators of the federal government. I let that stay in place. But I want to equalize the Senate and the House, and I'll put the House members at 3-term limited, which give them 6 years also. but they have to run 3 times though. And they come before the voters every 2 years, so their 3-term limit would be if you're not doing the people's business, they turn you out of office, and you don't serve if you're not elected, but you serve a maximum of 6 years. The president serves 1 term. I don't even think the president needs to get in there after running for a 4-year term. Get the president and let somebody else serve.
I think he should have to,
And
because he just be getting it on the first 4, and then after the second term, he knows what he's doing.
yeah, well, I like to believe that the
That's
president knows
the way
what he's
I
doing.
feel.
Yeah, okay. I would like to believe the president knows what he's doing, but I don't see any signs of it. Okay, well, we're gonna get this off the ground and stay tuned. Catherine, your program comes on at 3:30, and
Sator's Black History Corner.
and
Please
we'll run
tune
home
in.
and watch that program, and we're gonna shake the roof before it's over. Just stay tuned. Until next time, I want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.